So, Joy, have you ever been to a Turkish prison? Do you like gladiator movies? By the way, is there anyone listening who knows how to fly a plane? Well, looks like I picked the wrong day to give up Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond. That and sniffing glue. Not that there's a difference.
It's time to take an inside look at those that are taking their lives, their businesses, and their passions to the next level. Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Hey, Thrive Loud fans, Lou Diamond here. Wanted to share an episode that I had the incredible pleasure to host on a program called Fresh from the Hill. And we kind of made it into a Thrive Loud special episode where we featured the Irene Lee. You're really going to enjoy this episode, pulled from a Cornell alum, entrepreneur who started a great business. So sit back and enjoy this episode featuring Irene Lee. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. Today on Thrive Loud, we are featuring the Irene Lee. Irene Lee operates the award-winning Mei Mei Street Kitchen and Mei Mei Restaurant in Boston, Massachusetts, where her work centers around ethical sourcing and fair employment practices. Mei Mei has been featured by Food and Wine, Eater Boston, and National, the New York Times, Restaurant Hospitality, People, Bon Appetit, the Boston Globe, and so many more. Her background of living on an organic farm, having an understanding of economic and social justice, and working the restaurant line informed the direction of her creative farm-driven Chinese-American menus. Above all, Irene believes food can and should be delicious, fun, and amazing. So with that, we bring you the Irene Lee, class of 2012. Irene, how are you today?
I'm great, Lou. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, so this is awesome because one, I love to eat. And two, I know our listeners do as well. And I'm such a big fan to learn a little bit about your journey, about your business, about your restaurant. And I think the best way to start this is, so tell us from when you graduated Cornell to now, a little bit of your journey so everyone can be brought up to speed.
Yeah, so my pathway was a little bit meandering. I actually finished my junior year in 2011, and I went on leave. Cornell, I think at that time, let you take 5 years off, and you could go back, anytime. Just give them a heads up before the semester starts. So the reason I did that was twofold. One was that I wanted to go back to Boston to be with my family and to sort of see if this idea about a food truck really went anywhere. And the second reason, which was underlying that, was that my dad was starting to sort of get older and slow down, and he actually had Alzheimer's disease. And so it had been a while since the whole family had really been in one place for an extended period of time. And so for those two reasons, everybody, gave me their blessing to take some time off from school and to move back to Boston to be with the family. So we opened the food truck in 2012, and the rest is sort of history, I guess.
So let's go through this. So you open up the food truck, and I know, by the way, I'm a huge fan of food trucks in general. And also, interestingly, you said this is 2012. It's almost around the time that the movie Chef came out, right? Maybe a little before that, which I know features food trucks. So talk about working in a food truck, what that was like. I know cramped quarters, all of that. Where were you located in Boston? And give a lay of the land of what a typical day was like for you running the food truck.
The food truck was really a crazy and exciting place to work. We went through many months of building the vehicle, outfitting the kitchen, and then getting all the little permits that the city of Boston requires you to have. And the process took us a lot longer than we thought it would, but when we were eventually able to hit the road, we were super, super excited. And the city of Boston has a lottery system, so they create predetermined parking sites for food trucks, and then all the businesses enter a lottery and basically pick a number out of a hat, and then we get to go around and select which sites we want. So when we first started, we were doing 1 day a week near Northeastern University, 2 days a week in the Back Bay near Copley Square, another day near Boston University, and then a final day sort of in the downtown area. So we kind of thought of it as like being on tour. You know, you're brand new and you're seeing different people every single day of the week. And I think the best part was just getting to work next to my brother and sister every single day. And
now are you the oldest or the youngest or in the middle? What's the
I'm actually the youngest. Mei Mei means little sister in Chinese, and so sort of the joke is, and it's a joke, but it's also true. It was our brother's idea to open the food truck, and when he asked us, you know, his two little sisters, if we were interested in helping him, we said, "Yeah, that sounds great. You just have to name the business after us." And he, you know, took that in stride, which I think was probably a terrible mistake because now we take all the glory. But, you know, we wanted our name to sort of communicate our Chinese heritage and the fact that our food is inspired by growing up Chinese in the U.S. And at the same time, we wanted it to sort of communicate the importance of family and the idea that food is really about being in community with your family, your immediate family, but also your community, the city you live in, the farmers whose food you eat, and so on and so forth. So I'm actually 8 and 9 years younger than my brother and sister.
Oh, wow.
And so by the time I was like a semi-sentient preteen, you know, they were already off at college. So it had actually been years since we had all been in the same place. And in a way, it was the first time that the three of us were sort of all on a more level playing field as adults, spending time together. And when I say spending time together, I mean a lot of time. So we would get to the food truck in the morning, probably between 7 and 8. And we would load up all the food for the day, and then we would drive to the parking spot, spend some time prepping and getting ready for service. We'd open the window. Often we would have a line, you know, already going before we were even ready to start cooking food. We would crank out lunch for a couple hours and then clean up, drive everything back to the commissary kitchen. And then just when we finished cleaning up the food truck, that's when prep for the next day would start. Wow. So there was a long schedule, pretty grueling at times, but it was just really special to get to hang out with my brother and sister almost 24/7. You know, growing up, they were sort of like a cool second set of parents to me. You know, they shaped all my interests and my tastes in movies and music and stuff like that. So to get so much time with them was really special.
We know you're loving this amazing interview on Thrive Loud and how Lou is connecting with our guest. If you want to learn the skills Lou speaks about to audiences all over the world, head on over to loudiamond.net and order a copy of Lou's best-selling book, Master the Art of Connecting. Once you master how to connect, you'll thrive loud too. Okay, back to the show.
So Irene, really important. I think the listeners would love to hear, you know, having a restaurant with great food and getting the business started is always what everyone dreams about. And getting the customers and getting all those permits you talked about is challenging. But if you could share with the listeners, how did you get everyone in Boston to know about you?
That's a great question. I think we definitely, from the beginning, had the hometown advantage. So, you know, everyone who taught us in elementary school, our dentists and doctors, all of our friends and our friends' parents, we tried to get all of them really excited about what we were doing. We threw parties and did some in-home catering and had tasting events so that people could come to us and sort of get an idea of what it was that we were up to. At that time, food trucks were relatively new in Boston. There were probably about a dozen in 2012. And so for a lot of people, they didn't really know exactly what a food truck was or what it was supposed to be. And so we'd bring them over, you know, cook something for them, have them look at the truck, go inside, and really just try and get them excited. And we had so much enthusiasm for actually getting on the road and being able to serve people. And so we really, you know, I think it was infectious.
Did you go, by the way, to the same locations each day, or there were certain, Boston has certain rules on where you needed to be to have your food truck located?
Boston creates a series of approved food truck parking spots, and then all the food truck operators have to participate in a lottery. So if you get a good number in the lottery, you get first pick, and you get to choose one day of the week at a time. So for most trucks, they would get, a pretty good first round choice and an okay second round choice, and then maybe a not so great third round choice. And the schedule works on a weekly basis. So every Monday you'd be in the same place, every Tuesday maybe in a different place. But so, we would sort of get people excited and say, it's Wednesday again. We're going to be back at Copley Square. We're so excited to see you. And so it was kind of like being on tour, which is just a really cool and I think new experience for all of us.
So let's rewind a little bit and go back to Cornell. What did you specifically study when you were at Cornell? And what do you remember most? I guess I love to ask the question from people that were at university and then bring it into the working world. There's always that one class or that one experience from college that you always carry over. Share with the listeners what that might be.
So I was in the College of Arts and Sciences, and I think I was looking at a bunch of different majors. I knew I wanted to do some sort of social science or cultural study. And when I found out about the College Scholar program, I was really interested in that because I knew that I wanted to do something that was at least a little interdisciplinary. And when I read more and more about it, and I got to the part where it said, there are no requirements except you have to write a thesis, I was like, whoa, that sounds great. Because in that course catalog, there is so much stuff. And, in 50 years, you probably couldn't take all the classes that sound interesting to you because there's new ones all the time and there are just so many of them. And so I figured, I'm happy to write a long paper. And if this means that I have more flexibility to take classes that are fascinating to me, then that seems totally worth it. So I applied to the program at the end of my freshman year and was accepted in my sophomore year. And so I was really thrilled, I think, about just the level of possibility. So I was able to take a lot of graduate level courses, which was really awesome. And I was particularly interested in education. And I think, the people I met in those classes are folks I'm still in touch with now, 5 years later. And one of the classes that I will always remember, which is kind of relevant to this, is a class about narrative interview methods. So it's really about storytelling, right? And the idea is that, interviewing is a really important qualitative methodology. And so how do you ask the right questions and get information from people? And how does the way that they tell their story sort of give it context and highlight certain aspects of it? And I mean, in the end, it's really about psychology and understanding people and listening. And in so many ways, that is what hospitality is all about. So in the restaurant, if somebody walks in, maybe they seem like they're having a bad day and maybe they, are confused by the menu and they might tell you, I want this or I want that. And of course, as humans, we are notorious for not being very clear about what it is we actually want. So reading people is so important. Asking the right questions is so important. And of course, we want every guest to leave feeling like we met all of their stated desires and even delivered things that they didn't know they wanted. And so I always think about that class and how asking the right question is the only way to get the answer that you need.
As someone who's done a lot of interviewing and coaches a lot of people, I wish I took that class when I was at school because it's exactly what I do each and every day. Now let's jump back a little bit so you had Mei Mei, the street kitchen, the food truck. And I know that there's a Mei Mei restaurant as well. Did one come before the other, or where did the connection happen to go from the food truck? Did it expand from there?
It's a great question. And we, like many other food truck businesses in Boston, we started with the food truck. There are a lot of reasons for that. The main one is that it's a lot less expensive to open a food truck than it is to open a full-fledged restaurant. Don't get me wrong, it's not cheap, but it's definitely less expensive than sort of the full restaurant process. So we opened the food truck in April of 2012. And over the next year and a half, we learned a ton. And one of the things we learned was that renting commercial kitchen space, which is sort of what the city of Boston requires you to do if you don't have a restaurant, that was so expensive and was eating into our margins so much. And so we started feeling like, the only way we're going to be able to make this work and to sustain it will be to have our own kitchen where we can, have our own contracts with a linen service, and we can have our own dish machine, and we can have as many prep tables as we want at any time of day. So all of these logistics that we were dealing with in this big shared kitchen, we felt like that was holding us back. Not only was it expensive, but it was really limiting our growth just to have to deal with the interests of so many other businesses in one place. In particular, we had figured out, in our first year and a half of business that catering was one of the really sort of profitable and fun things that we could do with the food truck. So food truck weddings, for example, are all the rage now. Everyone wants a food truck at their birthday. And, for us, that's a super fun way to do business because we get to spend a little bit more time with the guest. We can put together a custom menu for them. It's really more opportunity for hospitality and for, again, listening to what the guest wants and trying to deliver that to them. And so for us to expand to the point where we could do catering and, prep wedding food for 150 people, we really needed to have our own kitchen space. And so that's how we ended up opening Mei Mei Restaurant near Boston University's South Campus in November of 2013.
And how's everything doing?
Everything is crazy. The restaurant business is pretty insane. And I came into it with very little experience. And I'm pretty sure that if I knew then what I knew now, maybe I would have ended up doing something else. Who's to say? But I think that our business has grown so much. We started out as, a family startup, essentially. And there were lots of upsides and downsides to that. And in the 5 or 6 years since then, we have become like a grown-up business in so many ways. Having systems and having protocol, and I guess I don't know, it feels like a real business. And I know that's probably weird to say because it's been a real business this whole time. But I think that for us, growing the business really meant, I think, maturing the business, not necessarily having more points of sale or more locations or anything like that. And now the business is doing really well. The restaurant industry is notoriously unprofitable, and we have been able to get into the black and to stay there for the last couple of years. So we're really proud of that. Right. In addition to that, we've been able to grow our staff and to really try to have some innovations around how we do employment because, again, notorious in the restaurant industry, the jobs are low paying and low quality, and there's, not really room for everyone to have a career. And so we've gone from, I think, worrying about the everyday grind, like, are we going to run out of dumplings today? Or, is my fish order going to come in? To sort of asking ourselves some of the bigger, more philosophical questions. Are people happy here? Do we feel fulfilled by the work we're doing? And so to be in a place where we're not worried about, keeping things afloat on an everyday basis is really amazing. And of course, we think of the difference between sort of working and managing as working in the business versus working on the business. And so I always know that things are going well if I'm able to spend my time working on the business. So that's stuff like marketing, growth plans, all kinds of admin and operation stuff where I'm working on making the business a better business. And that's as opposed to when I'm, covering a dishwashing shift or polishing glasses or serving guests. I love doing all of that stuff. And in fact, I miss it a lot. But that's working in the business. That's making sure the business is running and the things that absolutely have to happen are happening. So when I do have, a week where I get to really take a step back and think about the business in the bigger picture, I feel like that's how I know that things are going really well.
Irene, who I want to share this with the listeners here, for those that want to get an impressive list of what she's accomplished already. She's an Eater Young Gun winner. She is a Zagat and Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree and a 4 times James Beard Foundation Rising Star Chef semifinalist. I know there's a lot of hyphens there, which is very fitting for the restaurant business and the food part. So you are one heck of an entrepreneur with an incredible entrepreneurial spirit. And I love asking guests this question because it's a really good one to see how you tick. And that is, on these days where you're killing it and you're doing amazing, we also have days where we're not doing that, where we're not really thriving the way we should. So when you have trouble thriving, who or what do you turn to get back on the thriving track?
That's a great question. And I think for me, there are a couple of different answers. We definitely are driven by our values at Mei Mei, and that really is just about like doing the right thing and taking care of people, whether it's the guest or a vendor or an employee. Thinking about our people and their well-being is, I think, what gives me the most inspiration and what drives me to keep going, even if I've had a really crummy day. And then another thing that I don't always talk about this because it's a little bit embarrassing, but I think it's sort of important and it probably says something valuable about me, which is that I am a pretty competitive person, and not so much, I think, in the traditional way of like wanting to be the biggest or wanting to make the most money or have the most profit. But when I see people who are doing things that I think, are not so honorable or respectful or whatever it is, I feel so strongly that I can prove them wrong and that I can show that the choices they're making are not the choices that they have to make and that they can do better and that we can all do better. And in the restaurant industry, again, there's so much that we can do better. And so I have this sort of competitive side of my personality, but for me, it's really about trying to raise the bar for everyone. And there are a lot of times where I don't take no for an answer. A lot of restaurant owners might say like, hey, the minimum wage is $11 an hour here and times are tough. And so everyone gets paid $11 an hour and that's it. There's nothing we can do. And I really don't believe that. I've heard it and heard things like it all the time. And there has to be a better way. And there has to be a way for the business to be successful while not exploiting, every other entity the business is in relationship with. How do we win and let our employees win at the same time? How do we win without shortchanging the guest? And so I think that I just really believe that there are creative solutions, and I feel very driven by my sense of competition and self-righteousness, clearly, to be out there trying to figure out what those creative solutions are.
I like it. I like the passion and the drive, and you could see that with you. It's an interesting way you're putting yourself under the gun to get yourself back thriving. Pretty amazing unto itself. So Irene, well, let's use this as an opportunity right now for you to give all the plugs on where people can find Mei Mei Street Kitchen and everywhere from social media to locations and stuff like that. So this audience can learn more about the restaurant. And then I got a whole bunch of follow-up questions that I think you're going to like.
Awesome. Our website is www.meimeiboston.com, and that's spelled MEI. And our social handles are at Mei Mei Boston on just about every platform. Instagram is where I think we have the most fun. We do a lot of stories. Of course, we post pictures of delicious looking food. Every now and then there's like a funny photo of my niece or nephew who are just horrendously cute. And I think that that's where we sort of have the most personality. And then if anyone wants to get in touch with me about anything, I'm at Irene at meimeiboston.com. And, we really love fielding questions and doing interviews and just getting to tell more of our own story and to tell more about sort of the story of restaurants. Restaurants are something that we all have some familiarity with, but not everyone really gets to peek under the hood and to hear about what really makes things tick. And so that's a story that I feel like conscientious consumers, and there are more and more of them, a story that we really want to hear.
I love it. And I think it's great. And by the way, I'm looking right now at your Instagram post here in the pictures, and you couldn't be any more cute about your niece or nephew. I think this is your niece sticking her tongue out and holding her face out. So cute stuff and great.
That sounds about right.
You got to love the family spirit that's behind a great family business. It's a really wonderful story. It's great to see that it's difficult these days to not only survive in the restaurant business, but to have family businesses survive. And I think you're doing a phenomenal job in coming at it from such a great angle that a lot of people are familiar with. I'm sure those in the Boston area, and I'm sure now many of the listeners here will also get a chance to connect with you that way, which is awesome. All right. So now the fun questions. Are you ready? Your favorite thing to cook?
Oh, my favorite thing to cook is fried rice. And there are a bunch of reasons for that. But at the heart of it is that I come from a Chinese family. And any day of the week, it doesn't matter what else is for dinner. It could be pizza night. It could be spaghetti and meatballs night. But there is always white rice in the rice cooker. And that means that any afternoon or any late night, you can always scrounge up enough stuff from the fridge to turn that rice into a delicious, crispy, filling meal. So my favorite is putting in scrambled eggs and scallions and either broccoli or Brussels sprouts, a little bit of bacon and some honey, and just frying all of that up in a pan until it's nice and crispy. And I could eat buckets of that. And frankly, I do.
Wow.
So
I just got hungry thinking about it. What are in the city of Boston? What is the favorite, most popular order at the Mei Mei Street Kitchen?
Oh man, so far and away, we have created a monster that is called the Double Awesome. It is a scallion pancake sandwich, and inside it has melted Vermont cheddar cheese, pesto that we make from local greens, a mix of herbs and greens, and then 2 oozy eggs. And the way we get the perfect oozy egg is by steaming it in the oven and then frying it on the grill. And we fold it all up and we serve it with spicy ketchup on the side. And I think we're putting our egg farmers' kids through college. I don't really know. His name is Don, and they live in Providence. And we sell so many eggs because of that sandwich. So that is the best seller by far. It's what we're known for. There are days where I wish we could take it off the menu, but every now and again, I'll end up ordering one myself for lunch, and I'll sit there and eat it and say, you know what? You can stay. You are a good sandwich. And so that's sort of the signature item for sure.
The least favorite job that you have had having to operate the food truck?
Oh, great question. I think my least favorite job is probably around loading up the truck in the morning. And that is because I'm good at many things, but spatial reasoning is not one of them. And, in a restaurant, you are constantly playing Tetris. You have lots of different containers of food. They're all different shapes and sizes. Some of them are heavy. Some of them aren't heavy. Some of them will fly around, if the truck stops hard at a red light. And so I think I would get really frustrated very quickly trying to make sure that everything we needed was in the exact right place. But at the same time, I love organization. And so I could get the job done, but if I wasn't happy about it, it would just drive me nuts. And of course, in the restaurant industry, things happen so fast that if you're not organized, everything goes downhill. So the expression that we use, which is French, is mise en place. And that, of course, means everything in its place. And so whenever you don't have your Me's, you feel like you're naked, and you're not ready to crush the big rush at service. And so I think that was one of the things that just made me crazy. And so when I now get to step onto a station to cook, and someone else who's way better at the job than I am has set it up for me, that is like the greatest joy and privilege for me. So I think that has to be it.
Great answer. So since you're a Cornellian, I'm going to go in this direction. Louis or hot truck?
Oh man, it's got to be Louis, I think.
Well, we could be 50-50. Everyone's different. I was a hot truck guy. You got to remember, I was a hot truck guy, but I went to Cornell a long time ago, and the younger dorms were closer to West Campus. Now everybody's on North Campus. So you're all, at Louis. So, but everyone's got their thing. All right.
Yeah. And, there were also some incredible, I don't know when you were there, if they had all those food vendors at the farmer's market, but I have to say, like, I was a farmer's market devotee. And so those apple cider donuts and breakfast burritos, I hate to change the question on you, but for me,
it's good.
All about that.
That's good enough. And we can direct it any way you want. This is a great chance here. Irene Lee, what is your all-time favorite movie?
Oh, my all-time favorite movie has to be Sister Act. And I feel so silly saying that, but it was just such a big, ridiculous part of my childhood, growing up in a house where everybody played the piano, everybody sang. My grandmother was a Chinese opera singer, and got her scholarship to a university in America to play piano and sing. And so, that was just sort of like the soundtrack, which is so weird in so many ways, but it's true.
Great story. Great point. This has been spectacular. I'm really glad you came on the program here today. I think everyone will totally appreciate this. And I guess my last question to you here would be your parting words here. Message to those inspiring entrepreneurs out there that are looking forward to taking this risk. What words of advice would you take, having you done this and now being an entrepreneur yourself? What words of advice would you give someone young that's thinking about doing something similar?
Such a good question. I think the most important piece of advice that I have is that, of course, you have to love what you do, but you also have to understand it. It's not enough to be a great cook. You have to know how the business actually works. And in the restaurant industry, that's a really complicated question, and not one that you really figure out by learning how to cook. The way that restaurant finance works, all those mechanics are very, very specific to the industry. And I will freely admit that I walked into owning a restaurant without knowing much of anything about that. And so passion is important, but being educated is even more crucial, I think, because, they say that if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. And I have to say that, frankly, I completely disagree with that. You do still,
right.
You do still have to love what you do. It's just that that's not necessarily enough. And that's why people have hobbies, right? And now, cooking is not a hobby for me. I don't get to have it as a hobby anymore. It's work. And so really being educated on how to turn your passion into a successful business is so important. And then the other thing that I say is I wish I had done more squats. So don't skip leg day. Because no matter what kind of work you're going into, you're going to be pounding the pavement and working really hard and killing yourself physically, if not mentally as well. So, get strong now and you can do anything.
Irene Lee, you are a rock star, and this has been spectacular. Thank you so much for coming on the program. This was great.
Thanks so much, Lou. Take care.
And thank you all for joining us. Until next time, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. And follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Thrive Loud. Or find us on the web at thriveloud.com.